Good. So the Apocrypha now. The Apocrypha was is extra books to the Bible that are contained in the Catholic canon of Scripture. So what Apocrypha means is hidden things. So that's interesting. And just a brief description of some of these books. The number or the canon varies because sometimes, like, there's 3 extra books to Daniel, or extra chapters. So sometimes they're contained within the book of Daniel, and sometimes they're separated completely. So there's 14 roughly of these extra books to the Bible that are contained in the Catholic canon. And they vary in historical and spiritual significance all through. But I'm going to point out some of the big ones and talk about why they're interesting. So one of the extra books to Daniel is called Bel and the Dragon, or Bel and the Snake. That's where Babylon is worshiping these. One's a big statue, and Daniel proves that it's not living, and the other is like a big snake or dragon of some kind, and Daniel makes this combination of stuff that he feeds it to it, and its stomach swells and it blows up. Right, so Daniel, playing the hero that he is. The book of Susanna also is like about these 2 old pervs, right? And they tell this woman that's chilling out in this garden that she has to bang him, or they're going to say that she was cheating on her husband, that they saw it. And they're 2 old guys, so with 2 witnesses, they could have her stoned, right?
Okay.
So Daniel then comes into this trial and cross-examines these guys and stumps them, saying that they don't know what tree this was going on under. Ends up, these guys get put to death, and they let Susanna go free. Right? Susanna won't give in, so they end up going to trial about this. Esdras is extra books to Ezra, and is where we get that the canon of scriptures was maintained after Babylon ransacked the temple and destroyed all the implements and burned the scriptures. This is where we get the, from memory, it says he recited some 94 scripture. We don't know what it means to have a scripture numbered back then, but they say that through memory that he recited these scriptures, and it's how we maintain the scriptures to this day. Like in our book of Ezra, it says that he built a platform and he recited the book of Moses, something like that. But this gives a more detailed account that through his memory, being a priest and a scribe both, that he maintained the scriptures. Maccabees, 1st and 2nd Maccabees is a big one. It's historically accurate, which is how it differs from some of the other books of the Apocrypha. It's, no one would say that the Maccabean revolt didn't happen. And it was a huge event, a huge victory, one of the few victories that Jews had in their many revolts. The Maccabee means the hammer. It was brought on by the Seleucid kings trying to disallow the temple worship, disallow the circumcision covenant, insist that people were to eat pork, things like this. And the Maccabees stood up and led a revolt in 160 BC, and they actually won. In the Talmud, that I read from a lot, doesn't talk about the revolt because the old timers thought that you shouldn't act in a kingly manner if you're not from the tribe of Judah. So some people didn't even agree with the uprising, and you see that throughout the history of Judaism in these conflicts, is that some say, well, we could have spared a lot of bloodshed if we would have just allowed some compromise in. So it's hard to say what we would do in these situations. The book of Tobit is real interesting. This is where we get that, everyone, if you ask them who the archangels are, everyone will say that Raphael was one. But they really can't tell you where it came from. The angel Raphael, that's healer, comes from here. And Raphael's also in the book of Enoch and several other ancient texts. Tobit, one guy is blind, one woman, she gets married like 7 times, and before she can consummate the marriage, this demon Asmodeus kills all her husbands before she can consummate. So Raphael comes down and helps these situations, and that's a big thing that he does often, like in the book of Enoch, with these two Azazel and Samjaza that are corrupting the world. That Raphael's sent down to heal the world, to chain these demons up, and they put a mountain on top of them. And Asmodeus is in other extra biblical texts. Louis Ginsburg in Legends of the Jews writes about that Solomon with his ring had Asmodeus under his subjection, and that Asmodeus through trickery got Solomon's ring and like flipped him, and he went 400 parasangs or something, and that he took on Solomon's form and pretended to be Solomon for a time. So anyway, that's where you could read about the demon Asmodeus and the angel Raphael. So Kabbalah, that we talk about a lot in class, or at least the Tree of Life we talk about a lot, is a way of interpreting the Bible in a mystical direction. In theory, in practice, is a whole nother level of mysticism that we really don't need to talk about. But it's through the study of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and gematria is the study of the numerical values of each of those letters, right? And the 10 Sephiroth that we know is the 10 chief virtues of God. And so a couple of the texts that are preeminent in Kabbalah is the Sefer Yetzirah. This one that is probably the most ancient. They say it could have even been written by Abraham himself. And this is where the myth of the golem, how to create a golem, comes from, is the Sefer Yetzirah. One from the 12th century that's probably the most famous is the Zohar, and we really don't know who wrote that. But incredible mystical texts that offer just revolutionary theories in the way that humans and God interact with each other. So I would highly recommend those as far as a deeper study. The Talmud, that is the sacred oral Jewish tradition handed down to Moses on Sinai. Oral tradition, the written and the oral. The Talmud was compiled while they were in exile, right? It's mixed with the Halakha, that's law, right? It's like rabbis going back and forth talking about what these laws really mean and stuff. And then Agada, that's legends. I love the legends. So it's a mixture of the law and the legends, and it's these very learned rabbis going back and forth. And then the commentary by Rashi, who's a revolutionary in his commentary on the Talmud. And the Talmud is also the Mishnah, that's like the text, in Gemara, that's basically the commentary on the text.
Okay.
So that's the Talmud, and we know, but just a few stories from this, from Og and the Giants. A lot of these stories about the giants and the accounts of the giants, like we have Genesis 6, but then we have all these accounts that expound on it so much, right? About them hurling the babies at the ark, their giant babies hurling them at the ark and putting their feet on the holes when the waters from beneath were coming up, the geysers, and like the heat from the water was like flaying the skin off of the feet of the giants. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
But awesome, really entertaining. And Moses, how Moses, how when God calls him, he says that he doesn't speak well, right? The legend about that comes from the Talmud, and that as a child he kept like knocking the crown off the king's head, and so the king was going to kill him, right? And the king thought, well, how about I'll just test and see if he's just a dumb baby that's doing so, or if he has intention of getting my crown. So he puts a hot coal in the crown, and he says, we'll see which one Moses goes to, baby Moses. So Moses starting to head to the crown. It says an angel then turned the hand of Moses to this coal and caused him to pick it up and touch it to his mouth and burning his mouth.
Ah, that's why he had the problem speaking. Yeah.
Right?
That's awesome. That's cool.
The Dead Sea Scrolls found in 47 in the Qumran caves, and the Qumran Jews were similar to the Sicarii in the Great War that were in Masada. That was the last 900 or something of radical Jews that were hiding out in Masada. When the Romans came, they were similar to that in that they were sort of separatist um, from other Jews, and these texts were revolutionary because we have things now that are like 900 years older than the previous oldest texts of the Bible that we had.
Mm-hmm.
So this is incredible for that reason. Just a couple of the interesting things that we have a book of the giants that were in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and also a book called Enoch and the Watchers. Remember, the Watchers were the angels that were originally sent down, the sons of God, to that were commissioned to come to earth, but then later were entranced by the women, and stayed on earth.
And this was in the Dead Sea Scrolls that they found recently.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
In 47.
1947. Wow.
The Book of the Giants, and then Enoch and the Watchers also. There's one, the Temple Scroll, and there's scrolls from just about every book of the Old Testament, not Esther, though. Interesting thing about Esther is that, in that time of exile, this is about the Persian exile where Esther was born into. And we even see that in her name. Ishtar was a Persian god, so Esther, her Hebrew name was Hadassah, right? But they didn't. People often wonder why the name of God isn't in the whole book of Esther. It's not written in once, and they say it's because it was meant to travel, because everyone was in exile, right? And so it was always moving and on horseback, and so they didn't want the actual name written out, name of God, to be damaged in any way, and so for fear of this, they wrote it without God's name. That's a little side note.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
A couple interesting books of demonology. Obviously, I wouldn't put a demonology book in the hand of a guy that just got the team challenge.
Yeah, not a good idea.
But it's good to know your enemy.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
Oh, yeah.
So a couple of the main ones that I've read that I found really interesting was the Galatia, that was Aleister Crowley and S.L. McGregor Mathers, right? And they started. S.L. McGregor Mathers was the leader of a group called the Golden Dawn, and then him and Crowley kind of battled for the role of the leader of that group, and ended up created a sort of other group called the Key of Solomon, right? And they started out as Kabbalists, but they got off into weird stuff, communicating with angels and demons and thinking that they could control them to do their will, right? And so that's an interesting way of saying, you can start with something good and end up somewhere totally different, if you don't keep your eyes fixed.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely.
The Malleus Maleficarum means the hex hammer, right? And so this is like the guidebook to how in medieval times they would find and sentence and put to death a witch, the hex hammer. So that's really interesting. The Codex Gigas was the Devil's Bible. Remember we watched that documentary about the Devil's Bible?
Yeah.
Real interesting. So it's just a Bible, but it has all these incantations and exorcism rituals and stuff written on the outside. And it has that big picture of the devil in it,
Mm-hmm.
And the neat legend about that is that this priest was going to be put to death, or a monk, and that he sold his soul to the devil, and that he put all this knowledge into one Bible, and that he did it in a night, and that they spared his life because of it. So there's a neat legend there. But the Codex Gigas, the Book of Jasher, I mention a lot. So Jasher is extra biblical knowledge from like Genesis to Joshua, basically, without Leviticus, just the stories therein expounds on them, right? An example of this is Lamech. Remember, we have in Genesis 5 it says, or no, Genesis 4, it says, Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to my voice, you wives of Lamech. Give heed to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me and a boy for striking me. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. Right? An example of why Jasher is beautiful is right there. Is that in the book of Jasher it says that Lamech, whose eye had been dim, that Tubal-Cain was spotting for him while they were hunting, and that he shot an arrow at something that he thought was an animal, killed Cain. who had the mark put on him, the mark of Cain, and he was sent out. So he wasn't supposed to be harmed, right? So Cain, or Lamech, in his anger, kills Tubal-Cain, right? And so this is what that verse is about.
Okay. Yeah.
He killed a man, and then he killed a young man.
Gotcha.
Cain, and then killed Tubal-Cain. Esau and Nimrod. The neat thing, Nimrod was like the leader that was like inciting everyone to build the Tower of Babel. He was an evil guy, you know. What they say is that in Esau, who was also a mighty hunter, they say that the skins that God made for Adam to clothe him were passed down and kept on the ark, passed down, and that Cush, who was the son of Ham, got hold of him, and then they fell into evil hands, and that with wearing these skins, you had great power, and that's why Nimrod was such a mighty hunter, because he put these skins on. So that's pretty neat.
Wow.
That's the book of Joshua. So this is just a quick overview of some books and names and theories and practices that you're going to hear in Teen Challenge, and that you're going to hear in theological discussion and circles. And I don't want anyone to be confused about what they are, or if it's okay to read them, or if it's not. Ask your leaders, what they think if you're ready to read something like this. That's why there's a dean of students at Cape. It's Elmer Elfrink. And then before that, before you even get to him, you could ask a guy named Wade Lucanot. And here, that's why I spoon feed you the stuff slowly. And we don't, even though our library and the classroom is somewhat diversified compared to other home centers, it's there's not books on demonology and Kabbalah and stuff. But I want to get these words out there so that you guys know